Let's talk about Bethesda's game engine. We're going to go back to Oblivion and just work our way forward and then theorise about Starfield. Now, to understand some things first, people say the game engine is outdated. It's not. I'm going to tell you why right now. Game engines support all kinds of things. Bethesda's game engine allows you to open doors, loot crates, pick flowers, shoot deer and loot the corpses, and same with bandits. You can interact with the world in ways that other games don't allow. I mean, you just try doing that with Grand Theft Auto. Now, people want the game engine to be silky smooth like the other games are, but the other games don't support half of the things Bethesda's games support. In order for Bethesda to support that, they'd have to get rid of everything we like about the game. So no, the engine isn't outdated. Right? It could just use some refreshing every now and again with new ideas, which is what Bethesda do every time they release a new game. They had a bunch of features to it to make it interesting and new to those of us who played the games before. So that is why you get improvements, but no, it isn't outdated. In fact, it isn't really possible for a game engine to be outdated given how many game engines there are out there and how simple some of them are. So yeah, Bethesda is one of the better game engines from the perspective that it can be configured in an infinite number of different ways. So yeah, I'm a bit of a fan of the game engine that they produce. They may change the name, you know, there's a creation engine or whatever, but it's basically the same engine updated. Now, if we look back to the Oblivion days and the main way of controlling things, which was through scripts, they used to have what they call a main game loop. And the main game loop was a script that just went around and around and around and around and around. I believe back then it was on load and things like that, just round and round and round. Now, if you wanted to control anything, right, if you put down spawn and bad guy, it would spawn a bad guy every time it went round. So you go, bad guy spawned, bad guy spawned, bad guy suddenly, but you had a world full of bad guys and your game would crash. So you had to control that. We control that with variables, like variable like a equals 1, right? So if a equals 0, then spawn a bad guy. A now equals 1, so it won't spawn it more than once. You see? A equals 0, spawn bad guy, a equals 1, comes back around, a equals 0. No, it doesn't anymore. No, it equals 1 now, so it doesn't do it. Later on, down the bottom, you'd have a control function. I say it's a function, object-oriented code is what the technical term for it is, but it's not. This predates that. It's actually, the script was quite old, even for Oblivion days. But the code object-oriented code now, and the functions and everything are separate. You drag them into the current scripts when you need to use them. Use function calls. But anyway, you have a control section at the bottom of the script, at least I did. Bethesda didn't very often use this. In fact, I can't think of them using this. But further down the script, you'd have a thing where our bad guy spawning code, right, would be there. And it'd say like, is this bad guy alive or dead? Now the bad guy would tell the game if it was alive or dead based on a script on him. So it'd go, is he alive or dead? And if he says he's dead, then A equals 0 again. Script would go around, is A equals 0? Yes, respawn the bad guy. You see, so that's how it worked. You had the code doing the work, and controlled by variables to stop it constantly running all the time. And at the bottom, you had a way of resetting it if you needed to. This was the old system, the Oblivion system. I like the Oblivion system, but it was quite heavy in resources, and it was very easy to go out of control and corrupt saves. Because if you didn't have these controls set right, your world would fill up with bad guys, and your save would remember all these bad guys. It would just blow out until it was corrupt. Which is what I kept trying to tell people back in the day when they're messing with my scripts, but they didn't want to listen because they thought they knew better. Anyway, moving on to Skyrim and Fallout 4, these games, they use Papyrus, which is a bit different. It doesn't do a loop anymore. This is like, it's basically, what's the best way of describing it? it's like an on-call doctor, right? It runs when you need it. They have lots of different ways of running code when you need it. They used to do a script thing where you could run it from the start of the game, but they got rid of that fairly early on. Unfortunately, the trigger boxes might work great for Bethesda with their built-in quest, but for us modders, that were very unreliable and often didn't run at all. So you usually ended up having to use NPCs, right, to run stuff, because the ways of running a quest in any other way were few and far between. But anyway, they use object-oriented code, functions, right? You had a function call from your main script to a separate script, and it was quite a complicated process to set up, but it was very, very powerful, and I mean very powerful. For instance, every time someone walked in the door, assuming the trigger box worked, which was a big if, you could have a trigger box just inside the door. You'd walk across the trigger box, it's an invisible trigger box, right? I'm sounding like a UFO conspiracy theorist. Yeah, the monster was visible on this, but it was there. I could smell it. Now, this was an invisible trigger box. You cross the threshold, it enters the trigger box, it runs its script. Its script would then update another script, which would then know it can run its own code. Right, it says so, or it would tell another script that it was okay to run its own code when that other script was triggered in a similar kind of way, or through quest dialogue. So you could literally you could have a script going, "Oi, time to run that quest," or "Oi, try to spawn that or time to spawn that monster." And then the monster would magically appear just as you cross the threshold using these trigger boxes. This is what you see when you're in the editor, these square boxes everywhere. So as you walked into rooms or talked to people or did any action, open a chest, open a door, a script attached to that would then go, "Time to run the main quest," and things would happen. So it was a very different system, and it's very powerful because, like I said, you could have function calls, and because the function call was separate, you could call that from any quest. One of the things you couldn't do, which I did do because I'm a genius. No, I'm not. I'm just using mirrors, smoke and mirrors. But I managed to get my quest to communicate in Oblivion, something that theoretically was impossible, but I did it. In Skyrim, it's easy. It's dead easy to have your scripts communicate, which means, I mean, this is where it gets interesting. Which means when you actually get to the point where you want, say, a guild to talk to you about another guild, you can do it in Skyrim, dead easy. It just tells you how you can have them talk to each other directly or indirectly through a control script. It's a really easy thing to do, and this is where we get to now with Starfield, right? This system here, when Bethesda first introduced it, was new, had bugs. Now it's established, and they've probably worked on it some more. Which means if they can control what goes on that accurately like an on-call doctor when they need to know it, then simply landing your ship on a landing pad could update everything in that area based on what you've just done. You could literally land on the pad and it would go, right, he's joined the pirates, he's got a record, he's done this, he's done that, he doesn't like him, these don't like him, he's an enemy of them, he's an enemy of them, these guys owe him money, that guy's dead. And then as soon as you land, it's updated the world for you. The world you land on is now being fully updated according to what you've done up there in the sky, and it's ready for you, and it knows everything you've done. And when you take off and leave, the same thing could happen in the next planet you go to. It could update it based on, oh yeah, while he was on that planet, he killed the main bad guy. Now his brother on this planet is going to be a bit angry if he finds out it was him that did it, so he has to keep it a secret. Did he tell everybody he killed his brother or not? Yes, he did. Oopsies. Big bad brother's going to be hunting him down now. Oh, he kept it a secret. Didn't tell anybody. Denied it. His brother won't be. His brother's friendly. His brother will cooperate. His brother will give him a quest that gives him a super weapon. You know, that kind of thing. Right? So, if you look at the Starfield in the future and you think, you know, this system, a papyrus system, is basically, it's got a lot of scope, and it's along the lines of modern programming techniques, so it should be able to handle quite a lot of things. And it's a language worth learning simply because of the power it holds. Like I said, the trigger boxes are buggy as hell if you're making mods, and Bethesda haven't got the best record for fixing these things because it doesn't affect them when they're making the game, it just affects modders. And in the past, like I said, I've been moderated, ignored, banned for simply repeatedly mentioning these bugs to the point where they didn't want to hear it anymore. And in the end, like I said, it was videos showing the bug publicly that got things made. I had to humiliate Bethesda to get them to fix bugs in their own game, which shouldn't have been needed, but that's what was needed. That's what happened. So when Starfield comes out and they see these old bugs appearing, that will be the system we have to employ in order to get Bethesda to listen up and fix the bugs in a speedy manner. We have to humiliate them, we have to make the bugs public, we have to record them, we have to put them in a video, we have to put them on YouTube, and we have to share those videos. And whether we get along or not, if we're all modders and we want the game to be good as possible, we have to work together on this. Just like we did last time. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Just remember, right, these systems have adapted over time, and now we're getting to the point where Papyrus can truly shine. They'll probably rename it something else, but it could truly shine. It's a very modern language, so expect good things, right, in Starfield, because it's now what, third generation, Skyrim, Fallout 4. And then Starfield, so it'd be a third generation thing, assuming it is based on the same engine. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really good at using these stuff that Bethesda use. I mean, I've usually edited scripts, you know, that I've had to decompress from files first, and then edit them, and then recompress them and add them to game folders with no tools whatsoever from the company, you know, from developers. So being able to do it directly from an engine, game engine editor, is great for me. It makes me lazy. So, well, it doesn't make me lazy, because instead of doing like small mods, I do huge ones now because I can. But that's because of the game engine software that we are supplied with when they release their games. Anyway, I'll see you next time, and remember, the potential from the engine itself this time round is huge, right? And it's not only huge, when they do come to do the Elder Scrolls 6, any lessons learnt this time, and this is how they do it, they do some sci-fi game or Fallout, whatever, and then the next game, you know, addresses these issues, right? The potential for the Elder Scrolls 6 is massive. But don't be surprised if the Elder Scrolls 6 version is vastly changed from the Starfield version, because Starfield's going to be buggy. All the new features are going to be buggy in it, and they're going to need to fix them up for the next game. See you next time.